Good afternoon. It was a year ago yesterday, January 31st, 2018, that I first reported publicly on the challenges we were facing with garbage collection and announced the implementation of once-a-week collection. To briefly recap the situation, we had issues with the number of vehicles in service, the abuse workers were being subjected to, the unreliability of pickup, exorbitant overtime, injuries to staff, and general dissatisfaction with service levels. As an example, a section that should have 54 staff and 19 serviceable vehicles had 40 staff and 9 working vehicles on average. There was also a significant gap in the communication chain, both internally as well as efficiently communicating with the public. We have implemented new protocols to mitigate against this happening again. We worked through all those issues with our staff, along with our union partners, and I believe we have open lines of communication that flow both ways and have contributed to a better working environment and improved morale. A lot has happened in a year. Locals and residents alike have, in the main, adapted magnificently to the once-a-week collection, and the common refrain I have heard is that most people are pleased with the reliability of collections. The opening hours of the public drop-off were extended to make use of the facility more convenient, and the results are a significant increase in its use. And I've attached a graph comparing 2017 to 2018 volumes to give effect to that. Overtime has been cut by more than a half, from $1.2 million to $320,000. The number of injuries are down significantly, the number of vehicle accidents are also down, and the work-life balance of staff has improved since they no longer work into the evening hours. You may recall that a year ago we sent a team inclusive of a driver and a worker overseas to select a new batch of garbage trucks. I'm pleased to report that the new trucks arrived on island last month. They cleared customs and were released on the 11th of January, following which they were cleaned, inspected, modified, decals added, and paperwork submitted to TCD. They were taken to TCD on the 21st of January, and all are currently licensed for road use. 4 of the trucks suffered minor damage during offloading by, and the replacement parts are in transit from the UK. 1 truck has a minor electrical problem which will be addressed by the supplier, Farad, when they arrive on the 10th of February to commission all 5 vehicles. Chassis underseal, fitting of radios, GPS systems along with driver training is currently underway. Realistically, we anticipate them being placed into service the week of February 18th, assuming all goes well with the manufacturer's representative. Concurrently, we will be installing a new wash station at Marsh Folly to ensure the new trucks can be maintained in pristine condition. You will know that I met last week with the senior staff management team in Public Works to review the data and discuss the way forward. I can now report that after reviewing that data and receiving input from staff, I have decided that once-a-week collection will become a permanent feature of the Bermuda landscape. The aim always is to rid the country of garbage, manage the expectations of the public by not falsely promising something we cannot deliver. Let me now set out what additional measures we will take to assist the Bermudian public. A consistent complaint during this period has been from those areas that utilize the very large gray bins in communal disposal areas, as we have experienced a severe shortage of bin lift trucks. We have utilized private sector contractors and the Corporation of Hamilton Trucks to assist us on weekends to address this deficiency. The 5 new trucks all have that capability, and it is our expectation we will now be able to collect that waste on the day it is scheduled without the need to utilize outside contractors. All of us can help in that regard, however, by reducing the incredible amount of waste we generate, recycle, and composting food waste. We are experiencing an increase in maggots in the waste. This is mainly due to a combination of food waste and the climate, which are the perfect conditions for them to flourish. Some members of the public have suggested lidded trash bins and freezing food waste until the day of collection. I know that our education officer would wish that I recommend to you that you also consider composting, which is a painless way of helping the environment as well as successfully disposing of food waste without running the risk of attracting feral chickens, cat, or vermin to your trash. Of course, it is made considerably easier if you purchase a composting bin from any of the local hardware stores, or the best type that can be bought by purchasing from the Ministry of Public Works. In this vein as well, the Ministry has purchased 395-gallon wheelie bins scheduled to arrive on island next week, to be followed shortly thereafter by a similar number of 48-gallon recycling bins. These will be sold at landed cost and initially be targeted at those neighborhoods that use communal collection points to help address the challenges with vermin and feral chickens attacking trash bags. Let me end where I began by thanking the Bermuda public for adapting to this new collection schedule and those workers in waste management who do an outstanding job in collecting our waste under the most trying circumstances. I encourage members of the public to give a thought and even express thanks directly to those workers who so efficiently collect our garbage every week. There are a number of actions that we, the general public, can take to make things better. Cut back trees along private estate roads, as this causes damage to our vehicles, smashed windscreens and mirrors. Do not place garbage out before the collection day. Do not place too much garbage in a bag that one man cannot carry. Do not place dangerous or prohibited items in garbage. Do not place garbage in paper bags, and do not put out recyclables on non-recyclable collection days. There's been general acceptance of the once-a-week schedule, with a small minority of people ignoring the rules. We are determined to address this bad behavior by encouraging our workers to take pictures of any infractions, report it to their managers so that we can take action. They are not expected to collect trash that is strewn all over the road because of someone's bad behavior. They are not expected to drive up a road that does not have a clear path to gain access and either injure themselves or damage the vehicle. We will enforce the rules and address the guilty as appropriate. We as a people, all of us, must do better. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind the general public to be more aware of what they put in their trash, and always remember that the collection is carried out by hard-working staff who take pride in their work and deserve our thanks and support. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question. Minister, you said the decision now is that once a week will be permanent. I'm wondering if there is something that would have to happen in the future in order for the PLP government to change its view on this, to say, all right, you know what, we're going to go back to 2 weeks.
I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't predict what will happen in the future. I have to deal with the now. And so when you present me with a set of circumstances that support going to once-a-week garbage collection, I take it, and I'll list them again. If I spend $1.2 million in overtime for twice-a-week garbage collection, and I still cannot collect the garbage on time, and I'm now spending $320,000, that gets my attention. If there is a general acceptance across the board by the population of once-a-week garbage collection, and there are only small pockets of resistance, that gets my attention and suggests that we should transition to a modern way of doing things. And I get that people don't like change. I know we don't like change in any shape or form. But the fact of the matter remains is that there are a number of factors, not my opinion, a number of factors that indicate that we can adequately transition, and have done so, quite frankly, to once-a-week garbage collection. And so that is where we are. I mean, there is, to repeat, there's a small segment of the community, pockets of it across the island, who are resistant to change. And I would submit that if you collected garbage every week, every day, those pockets would still exist because they just don't care. So it's trying to change people's behavior. But I think that anybody who's a casual observer and is honest will recognize that in the past year we've seen an acceptance of it. Not only an acceptance of it, but a general pride in people's own neighborhoods by people who, particularly those who place their trash in communal areas, making their own signs. Garbage collection is on this day of the week, and you've seen people modify their behavior in order to be able to accommodate that. We as a country are currently in budget, and we have spent, not just the three of us here, but everybody in leadership position in this ministry, a considerable amount of time trying to get within the cash limits that have been set by the Ministry of Finance so that the government can meet its mandate and its commitment to the people of Bermuda, and also manage the debt and the deficit. And I can tell you that this ministry has led the way, because we've taken a similar approach in how we spend the money that is allocated to us to meet the needs and the requirements of this ministry. And at the end of the day, this is my final one, at the end of the day, the money that we spend, the money that the government spends, comes from all of us in this room and all of us in this country who pay its taxes. And the Minister of Finance said 2 nights ago at Heritage, nobody wants an increase in taxes. And I lead that charge in terms of not paying an increase in taxes. And so if we can encourage folk to modify their behavior and affect some savings and still not be a detriment to our community, then I'm inclined to do so.
Brian, do you have any further questions?
There was one suggestion on our Facebook page that I think to help the situation, the government might want to look at a 24-hour time space facility open very late. So I think they closed now around 7.
Yeah.
Would that consider that?
It's something we will look at, but what I will ask you is to have a look at the data. That's what I go back to again. I didn't introduce the people that are joining me. My bad. So this is Dr. Martin Biffin, who's the principal engineer who's in charge of the quarry, and so in charge of all the vehicles and supervises the purchase of the new vehicles. And this is Mr. Clarkston Trott, who's in charge, who's the waste management manager, in charge of all waste management. So they've been people who provided me with data. And you will see in very stark contrast the number of garbage that was picked up in 2017 and the amount of garbage that was at the public drop-off in 2018. And I actually use the facility, so I can speak a little bit from personal experience in the sense that we have seen a significant uptick in the number of people that use it. And I'll use myself again as an example. When I came to the ministry, I think the opening hours during the week were 9 to 6 or something, but they opened at 9. Totally inconvenient to me and to many other people on their way to work. I'm not bringing, and I had a bad experience. I think I may have explained to money. You know, I put the trash in there with the expectation that I would remember at 5 after 9 after being here 2 hours to go to Tynes Bay. I didn't. So when I went out in the evening, you can imagine, I had good smells. And I was trying to figure out where they were coming from, and I realized they're coming out of my trunk. I thought, well, this don't work. And so that helped me talk to these folk and figure out how it is that we could expand those hours so that it made it more convenient for folk. And so the results are that there is an uptick. A number of people have indicated to me, either at Tynes Bay or just out and about, that they're taking advantage of it because it is much more convenient. I'm not so sure that going to 24 hours increases that or widening the circle, but we'll certainly do some research, and if there's an indication that we should widen that further or modify it in some way, then we'll certainly take that on board. I would also like to remind that we were able to extend the hours without any cash cost to the Bermudian taxpayer. The provider there owes the government some money, and so we negotiated a deal where we would reduce their indebtedness by increasing those hours. And so we will have that discussion, certainly.
Colonel, can you give us an idea of the cost of the truck?
That's the one question that's going on in my head. You, Dr. Biffin, you know?
They're about 770,000 for 5.
Yeah, so slightly over $100,000 a piece.
What sort of life expectancy do you have for them, and how does that compare to the trucks you actually replace?
I can't speak to life, but I suspect, well, let me just say this. They are similar to the trucks that the Corporation of Hamilton have. And so the life expectancy is greater. Where we are headed is trying to get in a space where we don't have such a variety of manufacturers, so that you don't have to keep a variety of parts. But what is most critical to us in purchasing these 5 trucks, I believe they're 3 times the capacity? Twice the capacity of garbage can be collected in these trucks than the ones that we currently have in service. And so what that means is, particularly for the outlying parishes, like on a Monday when they go to Somerset, they do not have to now return to Tynes Bay as much as the trucks that we currently have to dump the load to go back to the west. And so that will help us greatly. One of the things that I didn't address in my statement is with 5 new trucks, why don't we go back to twice a week garbage collection, that we have vehicles? We still don't have enough vehicles. We have, you will partly in the statement, we should have a complement of 19 vehicles for twice a week garbage collection. We'll be at about 12 in terms, if we're able to maintain the 7 or 8 vehicles that we generally have had in service over the course of the last year. What this will do, though, is to give us some relief so that those people at the quarry that need to service and maintain vehicles will have some space in order to be able to do so, and they won't have people breathing on their neck that I need that truck in order to be able to accommodate the promise that we made to the people of Bermuda that your garbage will be collected today.
I think we would highlight that they, in the past, they've been TCD and they are.
I'm sorry?
They've been through TCD.
No, I said no, yeah.
Renee, you had something else?
With the increased capacity, does that restrict its access to certain areas?
It doesn't increase the number of years that we've already restricted to. And so in the lanes that weren't able to go up, no, we won't be able to go up with the new trucks either. But I think that there has to be some, I'll repeat what I said 2 days ago, that, you know, we as a country and we as a people have to take pride in our own neighborhoods. That's the bottom line. I can do whatever I can try and do as a minister, and we can do whatever we can in public works. Still not going to work if people don't give a damn. If people just don't care, then we're going to always have a problem. And I know from some of the communications that I receive from members of the public that it really isn't them, and they're quite frustrated by their neighbors, but they also see, well, I don't have no magic wand to fix neighborhood issues. They've actually got to talk to one another and try and generate some neighborhood pride that, you know, I don't want to have to drive by your trash in order to get home because you put it out on, you know, Tuesdays when garbage collection day is on Monday. And so it's trying to do that. And I'm resistant. I know that there was a story recently about mandatory recycling. And that is an area that we are contemplating, but I'm being resistant to doing that because I don't want us to be a police state. I think that we can actually, we're small enough and close enough and we know everybody enough to be able, I terrorize all the people that I know that don't recycle. And I tell them that one of these days, and they know I'm not joking, I'm going to call their names in Parliament as the guilty. And I'm going to out them as not recycling. And of course they look at me in fear. They know me well enough to know that. And some of them have gone out and bought blue beans. And I give them the answer, because I personally don't generate that much recyclables. But I have a bin outside that's got a blue bag in it, and I throw the things in. When it's full, I take it. I normally take it to Times Bay because I can't figure out what day they're coming in the West to get it, and that's not a burden. But I think that we must, we must contribute to the process. And I also go out on another limb in terms of waste management and dispel a myth that exists elsewhere, but isn't a myth for us, and that is, I sometimes get asked why we don't recycle plastics. And let me just say to the people of Bermuda that, plastics for us is actually money. Burning it is money. It serves as fuel for Times Bay Waste-to-Energy facility, and it helps us to generate more electricity by burning it with all the other trash we provide. So whilst we are headed towards banning single-use plastic bags, that's not going to really affect us. But plastic bottles and any other plastic thing is fuel for us, and so we will never recycle it because it is cash money to the people of Bermuda in terms of what we're able to generate from Times Bay.
You mentioned having your operators maybe take pictures of offending people for possession. Is there a process in place where, as if a neighbor?
They can do that too. They can do that too. We, in fact, recently had, and it was quite a disgusting set of circumstances actually. And I won't identify the area, but and I don't know how they came across it, but in the garbage were bottles of urine. And I don't know how the workers found it, but they actually found. And it was quite and so they lined them up on the road in front of the name of the house and took a picture and provided us with it. And so we were able to take the necessary steps to have the conversation that, first of all, that's disgusting. Second of all, that's not something that I think most people would even think about doing. You have a toilet for that, I'm serious. And so it was, I was furious. I was furious because can you imagine if they hadn't found it and that had gone into the back of the bin and the compressor had busted bottles, all over them is going to be, quite unacceptable behavior, I think, quite unacceptable behavior. And so we will be able to identify who the guilty are and take steps to do them. And I'll say this in fairness too. I never thought I would live to see the day where I had so much interest and knowledge about waste, but it's my responsibility. So, I take my job seriously. So I am always aware of where I'm driving and whether it's garbage collection day. And I was heading east one day, and it wasn't that day, and it was, garbage. And so I pulled into the driveway. They're going to tell me off. But anyway, I took pictures again of garbage bags, date, and, this name of the house. And I wrote to them, and I said, and I noticed now that they don't do it. And so I don't necessarily think I think it's just not something that is you only think about your garbage as a general rule and be concerned about it if you put it out in the morning and when you come home in the evening it's still there. If it's gone, you don't think nothing about it. And you don't think about it again until the next week that garbage day is due. And so if you pause and thought about it, they're pretty efficient. Most days you put it out and come in, it's going. And all your neighbors is going too.
Two more questions. One, has the department or the ministry ever thought of satellite drop-offs? I'm sure it's functional to have it at Times Bay. But the idea of having a drop-off in the east and a drop-off in the west?
The short answer to that is yes, and in fact we are exploring. The chief, who's currently traveling, and that's why he's not here today, chief engineer, has made some suggestions about what we call a transfer station, and is looking into the various options of that. But that comes with its own set of challenges, and so what you don't want to create is a feeding frenzy for the problem that we're trying to address with feral cats and other things by creating, a smorgasbord for them, as opposed to, what it is. And so we are exploring that as part of the option. But I'll say again, and just to reiterate and to reinforce, if people actually compost, you'd be amazed at the amount of waste that you reduce. And you'd also be amazed at the fact that, you have nothing now in your trash for those animals to feed on. You have nothing. And it really is quite, it's quite painless. You dump it in this composter, everything. Skins and every leftover food, everything. And you walk away. And at some point, out the bottom, it pushes out, not compost that you can put in your garden. I don't garden, but everybody in the neighborhood does that. They're welcome to it, and so they do, and then the result of that is they then share some of their vegetables as a result. And so it really is quite, it really is quite a painless. And I personally was surprised, because it's not something you think about, at the amount of waste that just completely was reduced. The best part is, I have one of these flip things. So in the morning when you flip it up to drop in the leftover from breakfast, you're not smelling last night's dinner or 2 nights ago's dinner. There's no smell of food whatsoever. Yeah.
Brings me to my last question. When it comes to compost,
yeah.
Can you just clarify for the general public costs and procedures to getting compost from marsh
Marsh Folly, the vegetation composter? As an individual, you can drive to Marsh Folly and bring your own bucket and take it for free. You drive into Marsh Folly, take the first right there at almost the entrance, and there's composting. You can fill up how many ever buckets you want to carry, and as often as you wish, and off you go. If you are a landscaper who's doing it for commercial means, you can purchase it at a reasonable cost, truckloads of it. But if you're just a gardener at home, you can help yourself.
If I'm sending a truck to pick up a half a load from my garden.
No, you could take your car, take a half a dozen of those, buckets that you get paint in, and do it yourself. It's going to be a lot cheaper then. All right?
Are there any final questions for the minister as it relates to today's waste management update? No? All right, well, that concludes today's press briefing. Thank you, members of the media, for joining us today. Thank you for your patience and your cooperation.